So, well, there are a couple of crucial things to remember about functions and objects in JavaScript. So the first thing is here, there is what's called a class. You can do class in JavaScript like you would in Python, but this is what's called syntactic sugar. So it's not actually like its own standalone statement. And there used to be an old way of declaring objects, which I'll show you. So in JavaScript, an object is what in Python you'd call a dictionary. So in let this object is just what in Python we'd say is a dictionary. And just like a Python dictionary, we can define keys on it. Like, we could be like, I don't know, think of, you could have like name, Dan. How old are you, Dan?
21.
21, and like address, Yeldon Road.
I'm 22 next week. Oh,
happy birthday. But yeah, you could do like Yeldon, and then you could do this. This is just like how you would do like a Python dictionary.
Yeah.
A couple of things to note: these don't have to be in quotation marks like they do in Python. So you can just do name, age, address. Whereas in Python, you'd have to do this. And the other thing is when you want to access, your name, you don't have to. You can do this object name. That would work, just like in Python. But you can also do this object dot name. And that will also work. These are the same thing.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to creating objects and classes, the traditional way to do something like that in JavaScript is to use a function. So if you wanted to make like a person object, you would create a function person, which takes in name, age, address. And then what you do is you then this function here person is effectively your constructor, where then you would set this dot name equals to name, this dot age equals to age, this dot address equal to address. And then if you wanted to create a person from this, then you would go like var dan equals new person. And then you would be, your name, which is Dan, and your age is 21. The other thing in JavaScript, by the way, this is quite handy. Unlike in Python, if a function takes in 3 things, you don't have to provide all 3. The function will still run, even if you only provide 2 of them. In this case, it will break because we actually need the 3rd argument. But it doesn't like. So if you did this in Python, you'd get like an error being like function expects 3 arguments, only got 2. You won't get that error in JavaScript. So that's something to be aware of.
But like, can you really write a method, beyond your constructor?
Yeah. So you can do so just like in this actually comes down. This is actually quite an important way that JavaScript works. JavaScript has what's called prototypical inheritance, which is a very funky long word, but it's actually really nifty when you think about it. And let me see if I can explain it a bit better. So these are variables, in your class. So each person object we create here. In fact, let's have a little mini lesson where we do this in the console. So we're going to go over to our console now in our browser, and let's just copy over this person function. Take care when pasting things you don't understand. Really? They have a warning that says I can't. They have a scammer warning in JavaScript. That's quite cute to stop people from pasting stuff in their console. That's probably a smart idea.
Because strange people like Rob tell us to.
Yeah, I know. Disable JavaScript. I don't think I want to do that. Right? How do I? Oh, I'll just type it out again. It's easier, right? So we'll just go function, person, name, age, address, and then we'll do this dot name, No, you don't. Oh wait, I did that wrong. I didn't like because I didn't set it equal. This dot name equals name. Question mark. Why can't I do a enter after I? That's odd. I can't seem to add in another line. Oh, okay. Go shift enter is how you add in another line. If you're wondering, I did it again. Right. This dot address equals address. Yeah. So you got like something like that. And then so we got this little mini function here. Let me see if I can make this bigger because it's quite small at the moment. So, can you read my console or is it quite small?
No, I can read it.
Okay. So I can make it. Can you read it, Ben?
Just
I
don't know.
I'll see if I can make it bigger.
Or recognizing the shapes of the words.
There you go. Is that a bit easier to read?
Oh yeah, a lot better. Thanks.
Let's go a bit smaller than that so we can. Okay. So what we can do now is if we do like var Dan, and we do what we did before, new person, Dan, 21, Yeldham Road. We set this thing, and then Dan, as you can see here, it's an object with a name Dan, age 21, address Yeldham Road, which is effectively just a Python dictionary.
Yeah.
So we can do Dan.
Why is the type of the object? Why is it an object?
Yeah.
If
So
it's an example of a function, I guess, or like
types don't work in quite the same way that. So in JavaScript, there isn't such a thing as like types in the same way there would be with Python. Everything is an object type. So if I do type of Dan, it says object. If you do type of most things in like, even if I do like type of window, which is like a built-in HTML thing, which is like a funky HTML class that's built into JavaScript, that's still an object. So types as you would think of them in Python don't exist.
Okay.
There is only one type, and it's object. So all objects are effectively just the same as this. They're just curly brackets. The thing that defines this object, is that it was created with this person function. And so what you can do is one of the nice things about the JavaScript console is you can kind of twiggle it down like this. So if you twiggle it down, you'll see here, your address, age, name, and then you'll see this thing here. It says prototype, and this kind of comes back to how objects and the core thing of how objects work in Python. So what defines Dan? Not you in general, Dan. Just you, Dan. The Dan object is that Dan was created with the person function. AKA in this prototype here, Dan has this. So if you can see down here, Dan.prototype.constructor has this function person here.
Yeah.
So that's what defines your type effectively, is because you were created with this function. I could create Ben, new person, Ben. How old are you, Ben? 20? 19? You're 21 now? God, you're an old boy. We'll just do Brussels because that's specific as enough as Ben gets. And if we type in Ben here, Ben also has the same things here, but also under his prototype, he has the same constructor function, person name. So that's what kind of defines his type. Now, going on to methods. So say now we want to add in a method that's like say name that just prints the name to the console. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste this function definition. Oh, it's not going to let me paste again though. Oh, it does. Okay, that's good. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add in. So the way you'd add in a method, the first kind of easy way you can think about adding a method is in JavaScript. Functions, just like in Python, actually, it's the same thing. Functions are the same as variables. There's no difference between them. Functions in Python and JavaScript are both what you'd call first-class functions. They're first-class citizens, which is the term, which basically means that you can do anything to a function that you could do to a variable. So we can, just like we've defined these variables up here, we could define this dot say hello and set it equal to a function.
Okay.
And inside of this function, oh, I've done it again, haven't I? Where I've bloody hit enter. This is rather annoying.
I like how the console has now satisfied you understand it well enough to allow you to paste it.
I know it's not yeah. But so now what we can do, so we can do console.log and then we can do this dot name. Yep. Note that you don't need to pass in self in the same way you would in Python.
Yeah.
That's just a Python thing. So we can now do this. And now unfortunately, this creates a new function, so our previous objects won't work anymore. So we'd need to create a new Dan, because the old Dan is clearly not good enough, because it doesn't have this
faster Dan.
Yeah, yelled them. I hope you're okay with everyone watching this knowing roughly where you live, Dan.
It's a street. I'm not gonna be here for that long.
I mean, I was even more discreet with Ben. That's partly because I don't know where Ben lives. But so now what we can do with Dan is we can do dan.sayHello, and it will say Dan. It prints Dan to the console. And this works just like Python. Now you may not want to do this, however, with your functions. The reason being is that if we print out Dan, and if we say make another one Ben, Ben equals new person, Ben 21, Belgium. You can we're getting even more private with Ben, and we can do Ben say hello again, and it'll say Ben. Notice how both Ben and Dan both have this say hello method in them. This is actually rather inefficient when you think about it, because say hello is effectively a property of the person class, not of the individual objects. So we're effectively having to store this function twice in memory for both these objects, even though they're the same thing. So wouldn't it be nice if we could make it such that this say hello function could be a property of the person class and kind of implicitly given to Ben and Dan, not just something they have to carry around with them in memory. So there's only one copy, because you could imagine, say there's say you have 1 million people now. Each of these people are going to have their own say hello function, but the say hello function does the same thing for everyone. So why do we have to create thousands of copies of it? This, by the way, is kind of motivation for how you would do inheritance. I don't know if you guys done very much inheritance in Python before.
Yeah.
A little bit. Because in Python, the way you do inheritance, you do this, very formal thing of, here's my class, and I'm going to create another class that inherits from it. Yeah.
Yeah.
In JavaScript, again, remember everything is of type object. So the way you would override in JavaScript is you can just give it functions. You can add functions to the object. Like, for example, this is another thing I think people may not realize, is we can add things to Dan once he's been created. So we can, what's something, give me something we could add to Dan. Like a variable.
Height,
okay. How tall are you, Dan? 160, 70, 80, something like that.
176, I think. 178.
So I can add that in now. And now Dan has this height at the end of him. Yeah, it's you can just do that, and it's there. Okay. You can freely mutate objects. But notice Ben doesn't get a height automatically. So that's again, you can add and remove stuff from objects as you go, which again is quite nice. You can do that in Python as well. I feel like people don't realize that. It's a bit sneaky. You can disable it in Python though. You can't disable it in JavaScript. So yes, you can add that. So now going about how you would add on. So you can remove the say hello function. And it all goes back to that. So remember when we were looking at this object here, there was this thing here that said prototype. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this prototype thing is special because this prototype is the same object for all the objects. So Dan and Ben have the same prototype object. They share it effectively. So what we can do is we can, again, because we can freely add stuff to objects in JavaScript, we can just do .height, yeah? We can add stuff to the prototype object. So the moment this prototype object just has a constructor in it, we can add other stuff. And then that allows us, then that stuff will be shared between Dan and Ben. So Dan and Ben will have the same of these things. So to show you how we do that, we do person.prototype. So this here is the function. Then we do .prototype. And then, for example, say we want to do say age, and we set this equal to a function. And I'm going to see whether I do the thing. No, I didn't. Okay. And then again, just like before, we can do console.log. We still have this, so we can do this, and we can do this.age. Now, let me see if this has worked. If we print out Ben, we'll see under his prototype, we now have this say age thing here. Yeah?
Yeah.
But also, because we changed the prototype, we didn't change Ben or Dan. Dan will also have say age in his prototype. So now we can call on all of these, we can say dan.sayAge, and it says his age. Or we can do ben.sayAge. And the nice thing is that function, if we go in Ben, if we just log out Ben, it's not directly saved in Ben. So it's not taking up extra memory. It's shared, the function is actually shared between them. So in general, in JavaScript, when you're creating func methods on objects, you want to do this .prototype. You can also use .prototype to create static variables. If any of you guys familiar with static variables at all?
No, what's the difference between static and, I guess, not static?
So say we want to do person.prototype and we want to set a variable which by default is the same for everyone, so that all people have the same, you want to set default values. So say we want to set, what's something we might want to set by default? Language. Let's say by default we'll have a very imperialistic view of the world. We'll say that everyone speaks English by default. So we could do person.prototype.language and set it equal to English. Now if I do ben.language, it says English, even though we haven't defined that on Ben. That's a variable that he now has.
Okay.
So that lets you set like default values, and Dan has it as well. So Dan, it's not in your object, but you can do dan.language, and you speak English now. But for example, with you guys, we can also override this. So we can still go dan.language, and we can override this to like English and Spanish. And now we do dan.language. You now speak English and Spanish. Yeah? But that hasn't changed Ben. So Ben still says English.
So does this kind of work similar to, you mentioned inheritance before, but is this essentially just, it is just a class, as you were saying before?
So in many ways, the person isn't the thing that sets you up, it's the prototype. So the person prototype is like what you would consider the default class almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we can, the nice thing is we can freely edit that on people, but every instance of person gets the same prototype.
Yeah. Like a class. Yeah, cool.
And it's the prototype that defines something. So that's how you you think about inheritance, that's how you would do it.
What is the, sorry, briefly, what you mentioned before that classes were syntax sugar or whatever.
Yeah.
What does that class syntactic sugar do that you can't do already here? Because it seems like this pretty much has everything.
Yeah, no, it does. You can't, there's nothing to it. It was created to basically make JavaScript look more like C or Python, or Java, like other languages that use. So if I go back into VS Code, so on the right here, the way you would set this sort of thing up using the class is you'd go class person, you do that, and then you have a constructor which takes in name, age, address, and then you would do this dot name equals name, this dot age equals age, this dot address equals address.
Yeah.
And if you want to do, say name, you do say name.
And the constructor is just a prototype.
Yeah. So this is doing. So let me just remove this stuff at the bottom here.
Yep.
If I do like this, for example. These two bits of JavaScript code are identical. There's no difference between them. I tend to find that do it this way at the bottom here, the kind of the prototype way of doing it. I would prefer if you can get the way up top here is probably easier to understand. It's more like how it would work in Python. But if you can get your head around this thing at the bottom here, this is probably the better way to do it, because this is the way that JavaScript is actually doing it. And it makes you aware that there's this thing here called prototype. Because prototype is just very important. And that's because fundamentally the way objects work in JavaScript is not the same as something like Python or C++. All objects are just curly braces that are just Python dictionaries effectively, and they're all the same Python dictionary. There's no difference between them.
Rob, so to be clear, that is how you've added a method, and so if you define, say, Mark, like new person.
Yep, let's do it.
He will also have the say name and or the say age.
So what? So if I just do new Mark, you mean if I don't put anything in person at all?
No. Like put in all the attributes, but he will have what you added using the prototype thing.
Yes. Yeah. Even though, yeah, and also, so that's the nice thing about prototype is it adds it on to all new instances of the person, but it also retroactively adds it on. So see, we didn't have to recreate Ben or Dan when I edited the prototype. Like it retroactively adds it on to all instances.
Yeah.
And it's because what is prototype? So let's just create Mark here because that's a good shout. Mark, you still with us?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You following along, all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
So Mark, what's your road called?
Address.
Huh?
Ravenscourt Park.
Oh yeah, Ravenscourt Park. That's gonna be Mark's anonymized address. Mark has all this stuff before, but we can still do as we did up here, like mark.language, and he speaks English.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why I said it by default.
So is it really like inheritance, or is it just kind of editing an existing class?
I mean, you can. Yeah, I mean that's kind of you can probably read up on, and again, so if you want to read up more on this and more kind of how this works, there's some really good stuff on the MDN stuff with MDN web docs here, and if you go learn web development, and I think this is in JavaScript. And I'll send this to you on Slack. I'll put it on the Slack thing. There's this introducing JavaScript objects. So I've kind of run through because I've read this before. These are all really worth reading all this introductory to JavaScript stuff because they're really well written and they kind of go over all the bits you need.